Okay, so in this short lesson, we're going to talk about how to play lead over a blues turnaround, and more specifically, which notes to land on and when to land on them, and sort of how to construct your phrasing when you're doing that. This is a topic that doesn't get talked about very often. A lot of times when you're looking around online and you're looking for content on turnarounds, and I'm just as guilty as anybody, when you make a video about turnarounds, we talk about this. Right? The classic sort of turnarounds. And there's lots of different versions of them. I collect turnarounds. I love them. But we don't talk about how to play lead over those. Now, that you could say that that's lead. I get that. But I'm talking about single string, like pentatonic lead. That kind of thing. And when I just did that, even without a jam track, you could tell that that was a turnaround. We're about to go back to the 1 chord, right? And so how do you do that? How do you know which notes to land on, when to do it, and all of that? That's what we're going to break down. I have 4 examples that I've tabbed out with a little simple jam track. Those are available if you're interested in those to help you kind of practice this and go through it. We're going to go through all the lesson material in this video, but I did want to make some extras for those that are premium members. So you can get those things by going to activemelody.com and do a search for ML117. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a blues, a 1-4-5 blues in the key of A. That means our chords are going to be A for the 1 chord, D for the 4 chord, E for the 5 chord. And when we talk about blues structure, 12-bar blues, let me just go through this structure real quick. This is kind of what happens, just generally speaking. We have a 1 chord, then it goes to the 4 chord, quick change, and then back to the 1. Stay on the 1. Then we go to the 4 chord. Stay on the 4. Back to the 1. Now we're going to come to the 5. There's our E. Here's our D. We go to the 4 chord. And then we go back to the 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Back to the 5. And then back to the 1. That's the typical blues format. And what we're talking about is what happens when I went back to the 1. And if I'm counting that out, you count it like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. And so that note that we're going to be looking at, the first thing we're going to look at is the note. When you play that note is on the and of 2. And so it happens when you go back to the 1. So remember, here it is again. Here's your 5 chord, your 4 chord, back to the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Now, it doesn't always land on the and of 2, but that's sort of a general rule of thumb. Sometimes when you're playing, you play ahead of the beat and sometimes behind and whatever. But I'm trying to create a sort of a formula for this and give you a destination. Now, I know a lot of you won't need to count this out. You can just feel it. You sort of know where it is. You just need to know the note. You can get the timing part. But some of you will need help with this. And so I'm trying to make something that's sort of helps with both of those. So what I'm doing when I'm playing lead, I can play lead over all of that. Over the 5 chord, I could play, let's see. Here's the 4 chord. We're back to the 1 chord, and then, and there it was. And so when we go back to the 1 chord, and if I'm counting it, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So that's where it is. Now I'm doing that while counting, so you can do that. You can work yourself up to that. Now, if in the beginning, if you struggle with this, you're just going to have to slow it down and just sort of try and do it methodically, just to kind of figure out where to put that phrase. But over time, you'll start to feel it. You won't have to count this. I don't have to count this when I'm playing it. I had to count it to figure out how to explain it, but otherwise I wouldn't have a clue where, what specific beat to land on. All right, so that's sort of when it happens, but what is that note that I'm landing on? Well, the note is the 5. It's the 5th note from your major scale. That's where it's coming from. So if we're playing our A major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that note, if you're playing in the key of A, is an E note. Now, I don't sit and count out the major scale. All I do is I know my 1, 4, 5 when I'm playing a blues. 1, 4, 5. Look how they're all in the same neighborhood. So if I use my E shape here for my 1, I use my A shape, same neighborhood for my 4, and then I'm using that C7 shape for my 5. In the beginning, just look at your E notes in this shape here. So you've got two of them. You've got one on the 5th fret, if we're playing in the key of A, so that's an E note there. And then you've got one on the 7th fret, 5th string. Those are your two in this neighborhood. So what that means is I can do whatever I want with the major and minor pentatonic scale. I can blend them, I can play them individually, whatever I want to do. I just need to land on this when it comes to the and of 2. Let me give some examples. So I'll start off by playing the major pentatonic scale pattern 2, this little box, right? So if I'm counting that out, it's I'll count it out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Well, I didn't say the and of 2, but it was there. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. And sometimes I might hit that B note twice. I might hit it on the 2 and the and of 2. Sometimes that happens. But so there's variations on it, but you're generally trying to land it somewhere on that 2 or the and of 2. In that case, I was landing on this B note here, the one on the 5th fret, 2nd string. Let's look at doing one down here on the 5th string. So I'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So there it is. I hit it on the 2 and then the and of 2 because I got there a little bit early. But that's okay. I can correct by just hitting it again. Or as another option, I could have hit that note and then played the chord, played that C7 shape. Sometimes that happens. But we're trying to stick to lead, not necessarily rhythm ideas. And some examples of artists that do this, there's two that pop in my mind when I think of this. One is B.B. King. I think of B.B. and all his little B.B. box stuff. You know, you can just tell with just a few notes exactly where you're at in the song. That was the turnaround. The other example is Eric Clapton, specifically the John Mayall and the Blues Breakers album. That's just one of the best albums of all time, in my opinion. But he does a lot of this kind of thing off of that E shape. Or, you know, it's the same idea. Sometimes it might be you're walking up to it, but you're always landing on that E note. So that's it. That's how it works. You've got in this E shape here, your A chord using the E shape. You've got these two. Let me show you another one down here. If I'm playing out of the A shape, I've got one on the 2nd fret, 4th string. And what's cool about this one is you've got your major pentatonic scale pattern 1 right here. So I could do the major pentatonic scale stuff out of this position if this is more comfortable for you. See, there's that note. I landed on it, and you could tell that would be where the turnaround is. The other one that I like in the key of A is up here on the 9th fret, 3rd string. And this would be in your minor pentatonic scale pattern 2. This note. So that's another great turnaround spot. Hear that little turnaround lick? All played there in the minor pentatonic scale pattern 2, but landing on that E note. You've also got an E note up here on the 12th fret, 1st string. And so you could do like, do something like that, hit it twice, but it ended up landing in the right spot, timing-wise. So let me now go through. I want to give 4 examples where I just play through. I've got a simple jam track that I'm going to play, and I'm just going to kind of talk it through. I'm going to start off by playing the E notes here, and then I'll play one down here, and then I'll conclude with one up here. But just to give you examples of how this works. Now, when I play over the jam track, I'm going to start off, the jam track starts on the 5 chord. So I'm just going to be improvising some lead here. It doesn't count, you're not counting any timing yet. It's going to start there, then it's going to go to the 4 chord. It's right here when we get to the 1 chord. 1 and 2. Right when I get to that 1 chord, that's when you count the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Okay? So we're not counting that E and the D chord. Those are just setting us up for where we're going. All right, so check this out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, here's a turnaround.